Over the last few months, I've been covering communities across Eastern Ottawa, communities like Russell, Casselman, and now Embrun. And the more time that I spend analyzing this Eastern corridor, the more convinced I become that Eastern Ottawa is one of the most overlooked lifestyle and value regions anywhere around Ottawa right now. Because something really important is happening. People are rethinking what they actually want from where they live. Not just what can I afford, but what kind of life do I actually want to build? And for a growing number of people, communities like Embrun are starting to make a lot of sense. And if you're new to the channel, well, welcome. And if you're not new, well, welcome back. My name's Mark Belanger. I'm a realtor here in Ottawa, and I help families make smart real estate decisions using data and analytical mindset. So let's get into the video. And before we start talking about real estate, I think it's important to understand what Embrun actually is, because many people outside of Eastern Ontario have never even heard of Embrun before. And Embrun sits roughly 35 minutes east of downtown Ottawa along the 417 within the Russell Township. And geographically, it's positioned right in the middle of Ottawa's Eastern corridor, connecting communities like Russell, Casselman, Limoges, Chrysler, Saint-Albert, and the Nation, and all of the surrounding areas. And over time, Embrun has increasingly evolved into one of the region's stronger commercial, retail, and service hubs. But what makes Embrun interesting isn't simply where it is on the map. It's the identity of the community itself. And historically, Embrun developed as a strong francophone agricultural community. Farming played a major role in the development of the region for generations, and even today, you can still feel those roots throughout the entire city. The bilingual and the French culture here is not just symbolic. You hear French regularly in schools, in restaurants, in local businesses, in sports and community events, and of course, all the day-to-day life. And personally, I think that gives the area a very different feel than many traditional suburban communities across Ottawa. And being French myself, French being my first language, I see it, I feel it, and quite frankly, I quite enjoy walking into a community and hearing my natural language. I can't explain it. It is just something that I actually really appreciate. And if I had to sum it all up, and if I'm speaking to family members or whatever, I always say the same thing. It has identity. It has culture. And I think that matters more than what people realize, because many communities today feel increasingly generic. Embrun doesn't feel that way at all. Now, historically, Embrun was much smaller and much more rural than it is today. But over the last decade or so, several things started happening simultaneously. Ottawa continued expanding outward. Housing prices increased. Families wanted more space. Remote and hybrid work became more common, and people increasingly started prioritizing lifestyle and affordability together. And at the same time, Highway 417 made commuting far more realistic for many workers. So communities across Eastern Ottawa started attracting increasingly more attention. And Embrun became particularly attractive because it offered a combination of accessibility, family-oriented living, bilingual culture, community identity, and relative value. That combination is actually quite rare. Now, this isn't simply anecdotal. The population throughout the city of Ottawa is exceeding 1 million people and continues growing steadily through both immigration and interprovincial migration. And while many people think growth only happens directly inside of Ottawa, well, communities in the surrounding corridor are increasingly benefiting from the expansion as well. And one thing that surprises people is that this region is not low income. Many residents here work in government, they work in tech, healthcare, construction, trades, education, and professional services, while choosing to live outside of the city. And that's important because it changes the conversation. People are not necessarily moving here because they can't afford Ottawa. Many are simply choosing communities like Embrun because they prefer the lifestyle, and they'll take the drive to Ottawa. 30 minutes at the end of the day for a commute to Ottawa is actually nothing. Ask anybody who lives in Toronto, anybody who lives in Vancouver, and they'll tell you the same thing. The bilingual side is also very significant. A large percentage of the residents across this area speak both French and English, and the Francophone identity remains one of the strongest cultural characteristics in the region. And one of the biggest misconceptions I hear all the time, and I want to hammer this home, is that people are saying that people move east simply because homes are cheaper. And while affordability absolutely matters, I actually think the bigger story here is lifestyle optimization. Many of the people I work with on a day-to-day basis can obviously buy in Ottawa, but they choose not to. And that's an important distinction because increasingly, people are asking for more space, less stress. They want to raise a family. They don't want to commute. They want to feel the community where they can actually go out and recognize some people when they do the groceries or wherever they go out into the community itself. Where can my money go further? And you start putting all of this together, and that from a day-to-day perspective is why Embrun is appealing to a lot of people. And that's a completely different conversation than simply what is the cheapest value from a residential perspective. Now let's talk about real estate specifically, because this is where things become very tangible. The average residential sale price in Ottawa sits around $720,000. That's everything, all areas, that's detached to condos, to townhouses, and everything in between. So roughly about $720,000. And what many buyers discover is that in communities like Embrun, that same budget, if not realistically $100,000, $150,000 less, but still gets you more home, like larger home, more square footage, bigger lots, newer construction, less density, less traffic, less noise, and a very different overall lifestyle experience. And that matters financially, of course, but it also matters emotionally because real estate isn't just pure math. I say that all the time. It's about quality of life. And I think that's one reason communities like Embrun continue attracting families, continues to attract the professionals, the remote workers, and the long-term buyers. They don't mind the 30-minute commute to get everything else that stands out. And speaking of standing out, among the communities in Eastern Ottawa, Embrun stands out for a few reasons. First and foremost is scale. Compared to many of the surrounding communities, Embrun has evolved into much more complete commercial and a service hub, much more retail, more restaurants, more grocery stores, more professional services and sports facilities and parks and infrastructure that make the day-to-day life much easier. And second, it still maintains character. It doesn't feel overly dense and it doesn't feel overly developed. And it still has that strong small town identity despite all of its growth. That combination is becoming harder to find. And people ask me all the time why I chose to live in this region when I could have lived anywhere around Ottawa. And my answer, quite honestly, is pretty simple. I like the pace, I like the community, I like the value, and I believed in the long-term future of Eastern Ottawa. There's a balance here that's becoming harder to find in larger urban environments. You still have community sports, schools, obviously, but local businesses, events, space, more bang for your buck from a residential perspective, and people who generally know each other, and that really matters. It's really a fun and interesting experience walking around and getting to see people that you recognize on a daily basis. And I think more people are starting to realize that lifestyle itself has value. Now, let's zoom out for just a second. I actually think that the bigger story isn't just Embrun. It's Eastern Ottawa as a whole. As Ottawa continues growing, more buyers are reevaluating. And let me know if you actually have been thinking about this. They're reevaluating their commute. They're reevaluating the remote work situations, the family priorities, the space or the need for space, and the overall lifestyle quality. That creates pressure outward from major urban centers and communities with strong schools, community identity, which definitely you'll find here in Embrun, Good infrastructure, commercial services, and proximity to Ottawa tend to attract long-term interest over time. And that doesn't mean prices go up forever. Nothing actually works that way, but fundamentally, this corridor has many characteristics people are actually searching for. And one of my favorite things to do with any of my buyers that are relocating to Ottawa, or more specifically to the Russell or Embrun area, is to actually spend a full day, or at least a full afternoon, or multiple afternoons exploring this Eastern corridor. And together, let's take a couple of days. Let's visit Embrun and Russell and Casselman. All of these areas are within 15 minutes from each other. And together, we can compare the builders, the neighborhoods, the incentives, the commutes, the lifestyles, the investment potential long-term, the overall feel for each of the regions, because every community feels different. And what I found is that most people don't really understand those differences until they physically spend the time here. And that's why I strongly prefer having a consultation call first. Let's discuss absolutely everything before we go out and we visit various homes. Let's understand your goals. Let's understand your budget, your family needs, your work situation, your commute tolerance, your long-term plans. And when I actually know all of this, we can then focus on what is important during our tours. And we'll build together a shared Google Doc, and we'll track absolutely everything on that Google Doc. We'll compare the various builders, the various lots, what we liked, what we didn't like. We'll obviously monitor how many bedrooms, bathrooms, square foot, and everything else. And we'll color code the actual spreadsheet: red, green, and yellow. Red simply means not interested. Green means we absolutely want to see. And yellow, well, you're kind of in the middle. We probably need a little bit of help. But the important thing is to have a shared doc so that we know, that we don't forget, and that we can make an educated decision together. That's something I do with all of my buyers, and it's something that we should be doing all the time anyway, because it's pretty overwhelming when you're trying to remember everything all the time. So anyway, that is just a simple thing that we can do together. So to sum it all up, I'd rather be moving with intention and strategically versus being reactive and feeling the overwhelm and the chaos. And honestly, added to all of that, I really enjoy meeting different people with different backgrounds, different jobs. Makes my day-to-day job much more interesting. All right, so let's wrap it up. At the end of the day, I don't think people are simply moving to communities like Embrun because it's a cheaper place to live. I think many of the people that are moving here because they want to build a better overall lifestyle. Less pressure, more space, more balance, more community, better long-term alignment. And for the right person, Embrun offers a very compelling combination of all of those things. So if you're considering moving to Embrun or to Russell or to Casselman or anywhere in the Eastern Ottawa corridor, feel free to reach out. Go to my website at markbelangerrealty.com. Take a couple of seconds, scroll down to the neighborhood section. You will see a section on Embrun and Casselman and so on. Get some statistics, get a better overall sense. Take a look on my website. You'll also find various school information, various restaurant information, and so on. Once you've done some of the preliminary work, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. Let's discuss what is important to you. Also on my website, you'll find the readiness quiz. I talk about this on all of my videos. That quiz is designed to help you get a better perspective on where you are and where you want to go. And hopefully I can help you along your journey. That quiz takes 2 minutes, but really it is the foundation of it all. I take the answers to that quiz on our consultation call, and we can discuss the various questions in much more detail. And then from there, we can go out house hunting, because I know a little bit about where you are and where you're going, and it makes the experience just that much better for both of us. So I hope it helps. I hope this video has helped in some small way. I enjoy putting these videos together on a weekly basis. So until the next video, stay smart, stay invested. I'll see you in the next video.